one of my pop-up lives. So I go live. Well, I used to do it every Wednesday. Now I've got podcast recordings that I am doing on Wednesday. So I moved my lives to a Thursday. So you will see me from time to time. You will see me around this time doing pop-up lives on all my platforms. So if this is the very first time that you hear me, that you see me, my name is Dr. Megan Brainerd, and I help high achieving women of faith in business between the age of 40 and 70 to turn their book ideas into legacy author brands. So, what does that look like? So, I'll help them to write impactful books as well as publish on purpose. And then the final step is then helping them to build a profitable business beyond the book launch, because you and I both know that God didn't only call us to write the book, but He also commissioned us to steward it well. So if you are jumping in, no matter where you're from, whether you tuned in from the USA, whether you tuned in from the UK, welcome, welcome, welcome. I've got you probably tuning in from either Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. But I want to have a conversation with all of us today, and I want to speak to you about just the importance of being obedient to finish your book, right? So the reason why I needed to speak on this topic is because I've just seen so many authors that they've got so many ideas, they're creative, they are multifaceted leaders, but we get caught up with projects, we get caught up with building our business a certain way. We get so caught up that we forget to pause and finish the now assignment. I'm not speaking about the assignment that's due in 3 months. I'm not speaking about the assignment that we are still hung up, that we didn't finish in the previous year. I'm speaking about the Kairos time. I'm speaking about the now. I've had conversations with authors. The one time I was interviewing an author, and she said something so profound. She said that the Lord spoke to her and He said, if you don't finish this book in 90 days, I'm going to use someone else to share this message. And we were both looking at one another and we're like, wow, a lot of times we think that God has to wait for us. He has to wait when we stopped overthinking. He has to wait when we are done procrastinating, that He has to wait on us. But I came on here to just remind you that if God cannot find you, He will use someone else. I want to encourage someone today, and I want to say it's time for you to complete that book assignment. And this is not just something that I'm saying lightly, but I'm saying this not because I am a prophetic book architect, not because that is part of my mandate to help scribes finish book in 90 days, but I'm saying you as a fellow sister in Christ, I'm saying this to you as a fellow believer in business, that he needs you to finish that prophetic writing assignment. Your destiny is connected to it. Someone else's breakthrough is connected to it. And your next level of expansion is connected to it. You know what? Sometimes we say things to ourselves that make us feel good. And we actually believe that there's time. We say to ourselves that, you know what, if I don't feel like it today, or perhaps I'll start with the next project. I'll start pivoting next month. Let me first finish what I'm busy with right now. But He is calling a people that's making themselves available to be used by Him. So many times we say that we are partnering with God in our businesses, but we find ourselves just working in His name, saying that He is the CEO of our business. We say things like, I'm a kingdom vessel, I'm a kingdom ambassador. We use these terms when we are marketing, we use these terms when we are speaking to clients, or even if it is in a casual conversation. But what we don't realize is that we have been partially obedient. We have not fully completed the assignments, which means that we are leaving loose ends for the enemy to accuse us day and night, to say, look, your servant says, she said that she's going to be doing XYZ. Well, she's still being kept busy. I'm keeping her busy. It's so easy for the enemy to keep us busy. And this is just a prophetic charge for you, because God has been calling me to partner with other prophetic builders and apostolic builders that they don't feel like pausing because it feels uncomfortable. And that is how I come alongside them to say, you know what, this is his assignment now. He's asking you to walk on water. He's asking you to cast your net to the other side. And then I want to be speaking about some of the thoughts that we may be having that is keeping us from finishing the assignment, because I don't just want to be speaking to you about strategy because you're not lacking structure, woman of God. That is not your problem. But a lot of times the problem is that we have allowed disappointment, we have allowed grief, we have allowed our inability to actually deal with the emotional soul wounds that was left in a previous season. The residue is still there. We've allowed that to choke the dream, to choke the seed, and it is preventing us from fully stepping into our calling. I know I'm speaking to someone today. And God is calling you back. He's inviting you back. He's inviting you back into the secret place so that you can get your instructions. He's inviting you back in intimacy with him because you have drifted away because of the issues of life. And he's saying, I've got the blueprint for you to be able to finish your book in 20 days. I have the blueprint for you so that you can launch the next product and get a cash flow in our business. But we need to get still. We need to get still. We need to get out of our own way and stop making excuses that is keeping us from stepping into our next. Because it's so easy to say, you know what, I'm waiting on God. But you know what? He's waiting on you. He's waiting on you to walk in obedience. He's waiting on you to stir your gifting. And he's waiting on you to get off the milk and to develop in a way so that he can use you on the platform. So you may have started a podcast out of obedience, right? And when he gives you many responsibilities, if you're managing more than one business and you've prayed about it, you've received breakthrough, there comes a point where we hit a plateau where we become comfortable again. Because I promise you, if you are about God's business, you can never just sit back and say, you know, I've done what God asked me to do. But he will always come and he will send people to say, okay, this assignment is done now. Yes, there will be a time for you to say, okay, you know, let me learn the lessons. There's going to be a time of preparation. But so many of you are over prepared. You are overfed spiritually. You are overfed when it comes to information because you are still waiting on perfection before you move. And God is saying it cannot be, you cannot flow that way. It cannot come from perfection. All the templates doesn't need to be perfect before you launch the thing, right? Your book doesn't have to have the perfect flow and structure before you give your yes to the coach or the consultant. You don't have to wait to have 400,000 words before you submit your manuscript to the editor. But you need to show up and meet God halfway. And another thing that also leads to us not fully walking out what God has called us to do is because we haven't spent the time to actually become the person that God is calling us to be. You will not be able to carry the weight of the assignment if you don't allow yourself to let go of false identities, if you don't manage any, if you don't manage your scars, if you don't manage your healing, because you need to become a certain person. I'm speaking about wholeness. I'm speaking about purity. I'm speaking about being righteous in Him. I'm speaking about abiding in Him instead of your own feelings and emotions. pushing through when it becomes uncomfortable, when you said yes to assignment, not pulling out, but saying, I'm going to do it anyway, even though it doesn't feel good. This is what I'm speaking about. So, who do you need to become, woman of God, in order to fulfill the call of God on your life? This is the question. Because that is tied to the amount of money you will make in your business. That is tied to whether you will be making a profit from the book after you've written it. And that is tied to whether you are going to be building ecosystems and movements, whether it is starting the virtual academy, whether it is dreaming big with God. Because God doesn't need convincing. He just needs you to trust him. So when doubt creeps in and when unbelief creeps in, it becomes a stronghold because you are not released and you're not operating in the freedom to actually now take that next step. And like I said, it has nothing to do with how we feel in the moment because we have to, the spirit man has to override the flesh if we are going to be walking out in obedience. So who do you need to become? Who do you need to become today? What habits do you need to change? What thought patterns do you need to lay down? What heart posture do you need to take hold of? Is it perhaps he wants you to increase your prayer life? Could it be that he wants you to increase your faith? Because the words that you are speaking doesn't line up with what we profess. It doesn't line up with who we say that we believe. So we need to do a faith check. Because if the decisions that we are making does not align with our faith, it means that we are believing in another source. We are being mastered by something else, by our own thoughts. Because at the end of the day, if we are walking in obedience, we're going to make sure that when God disrupts our plans, that we're not going to delay what needs to happen next. So what if you've been delaying? What if you've been putting on the back burner? Who have you allowed to speak to you to say, oh, no, it's fine, not now? Because I promise you, the same people that's whispering in your ear, those are covenants that you went into unlawfully because you were unequally yoked. The people that has your ear has more power over you than the voice of God. So now you are going into reasoning and trying to make logic of everything that's happening around you instead of following and hearing the voice of God. So my encouragement to you today is to ask yourself the habits, the behaviors, the decisions that you are currently making. Is it rooted in fear or is it rooted in faith? That is my question for you today. So I will continue with this topic next week, Thursday, and I'll be deep diving more into why women of faith in business, why we allow fear to determine our decisions. And I will be bringing in some scripture as well as practical examples so that you can be exhorted and get out of your own way. That's it from me, Dr. Megan Brainerd. God bless.